SafariLIVE, you are live.
Good morning everybody, and welcome to the wonders of this gorgeous dawn just broken in the Kruger National Park, the western fringes thereof, Djuma Private Game Reserve, where there is a little group of elephants that you can see there, just grazing through this verdant green Combretum woodland. A couple of young bulls and one bull who's got some fairly amorous intentions, I think. He's the one that you can see on the left-hand side of your picture there. My name is James Hendry, back from leave, and in the hot seat with me today, Bryan Joubert. Good morning, Bryan. Beautifully trimmed beard, as I said yesterday. Goldilocks hair covered in a bright blue buff. On the other vehicle today, we've got Jamie Patterson. She is being filmed by the inimitable Wium, who, like I said yesterday, resembles a young Paul Kruger. Google that. It is rather amusing. And then just over here, there is a buffalo bull keeping a low profile. He's trying to stay away from the elephants, I think. That one bull with the amorous intentions was chasing a few buffalo around here earlier. Just a quick apology for our late arrival this morning. Some streaming issues on the London side. I don't know how all that works, but Alex managed to sort it out. Now, you are on a live safari, and that means that we'd love to hear from you. Please do talk to us. Questions at wildearth.tv if you want to tweet us, if you want to email us, and then hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter. All around us you can hear the crested barbets going, so should you wish to tweet like them, Twitter, hashtag SafariLIVE. Otherwise, the YouTube chat stream, that's always a difficult thing to say first off in the morning. YouTube chat stream is a very good way of talking to us. So welcome to it. We're going to spend the next 3 hours or so driving around the wonders of the African morning and see what we can find. At the moment, I don't think we're going to move too far. There are buffalo all around, buffalo bulls, and then those elephants through there, and they're all just enjoying this lovely morning. And thank you to all of you for your kind welcoming of Bryan and I back to the fold of the wilderness here. He's quite itchy, that fellow. Oh, is that a cataract or just a reflection, Bryan? It's a cataract. Oh dear, he's only going to be able to see through one eye. That gives him a kind of zombie-like appearance. Of course, the technology of ophthalmic surgery has not really reached buffalo society yet, so he's going to have to cope with that. And while it looks like a cataract, it is probably more likely an injury where he had been running away from something and spiked his eye on a thorn or on a twig, and that has probably resulted in blindness in the left eye there, which will definitely compromise his ability to see predators, but that's why he'll hang around in a group. And old buffalo bull. And all around you can hear beautiful bird sound. Like I said, the crested barbets, ring-necked doves. There was a sabota lark calling vociferously before you came to see us. And there, the buffalo, and to the left of him, the mighty sun has just come up. Isn't that lovely? And as the sun comes up, bright red, of course, we must remember to welcome the bright red hair of Kirsten McLennan-Smith back from her leave, and she is directing this morning, being ably assisted by Rebecca. Well, I'm not sure how ably Rebecca's assisting, given that she's been here less than 24 hours, but I think within the next day or so, Rebecca, of course, will be directing. Gorgeous, gorgeous sun. And apparently you have seen that buffalo before with his cataract. And it's amazing to me, you know, so often the impala and those sorts of things totally indistinguishable from each other. Sorry, you could hear that my voice became arrested as a comment from Kimber came through. And I was just going to say that the buffalo, of course, look so completely individual, so they are easy to identify normally. And Kimber, you were saying that you've been told that this buffalo is going blind in his other eye as well. I'll try and get a look at that now. That is just wonderful. And I got to tell you, the smells around here this morning, just stunning. Some sweet smells of flowers, of new green vegetation, aromatic vegetation. There I am, just popping up. The buffalo's gone through there. So, Kimber, let's go and see if we can't find and have a look at whether he is indeed going blind in that other eye. It's the call of a tawny flanked prinia. Tip, 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 tip. It's quite thick in here, so if we don't get a good view of that buffalo, I'm not going to try and chase him through here. But I think they're probably heading out onto quarantine clearings. I suspect because the night was warmish, they've been grazing through here throughout the night, and they will head out down towards the Dam shortly to have their morning coffee of, well, morning soup really, of dung and water and mud and waste products from terrapins. That's the kind of morning affair. Not quite a very fine Italian brew that we had this morning. Right, I don't know where the buffalo's gone, but there is a young elephant bull. He was the first chap we saw today. There's some more elephants coming out of the bush now in front of us. I think this is a group of young bulls. There they are. You see them, Bryan? Mm-hmm. That's that thing there.
No, your hand's in the way.
Oh, sorry. Now, these two bulls are talking to each other. Watch, there we go, trunk in the mouth. That's how they greet each other. It helps them to smell. And now they're just going to have a little bit of a kind of argy-bargy. Now, you could tell they were talking to each other. This is two young bulls and then another little one behind. He's a smaller one. You can tell they're talking to each other just by the fact that they walked up, and as they saw each other, they lifted their heads, and there was just very clearly some kind of communication going on. There is now as well, and you can see the one on the left is starting to stream slightly from his temporal gland. There we go. He's bigger, and so he's going to assert himself. And, of course, relieve himself of some unwanted, undigested material. Thank you for that. He seems to have something of a runny tummy. I'm not sure what that means. Now, there's a lot of dominance display going on here, of course. Bit of feeding. So the reason that elephant looks, I suppose, like he's become aroused is simply because there is this dominance display, and this is very common with lots of mammals. When there is a dominance display, even between two cats or two buffalo or two elephants, that often happens. And I think sometimes it's mistaken for some kind of sexual behavior, if you like, but I don't think that's what's going on here. I think it's almost entirely likely that it is a dominance display. It happens with giraffe, and for a long time people thought that it indicated that there was homosexuality amongst giraffe. And while there might be amongst some of the animals, I think often it is certainly an example of dominance display. And just like male human beings will seek to assert dominance over each other, that's exactly what these elephants are doing, by pushing each other about. I don't think there's much of a contest here, as that other fellow is quite large. Matthew, a very nice question. You're in Los Angeles, where it must be pretty late at night. Matthew, you say that, is it not noticeable that the condition of the elephants here has improved over the last little while as a result of the rain and the green growth that has come with it? Matthew, I would say yes, it is. I mean, elephants not as obviously as, for example, the buffalo, which was starting to look a bit ropey when I went on leave. But yes, I would say the general condition of all the animals I've seen in the last 24 hours or so also have been much improved from the condition that they were 2 weeks ago when I went on leave. And also, I mean, you can tell that the diet has changed completely for the elephants. The elephants were, apart from that one which is eating a seedling, the elephants are eating largely grass now, which is the normal thing that they would be eating at this time of year. This little fellow here trying to smell the air. Are they talking to each other again? You can just see. He's also communicating with us, of course. And young bulls like this will enjoy spending time with each other. He's probably about almost 20 years old. Oi, careful, don't back into us. He's only about 9 feet from us. Having a little fight. And just wonderful that they don't pay us any attention. Well, except that if they come reversing towards us, of course. Oh, this is brilliant. This is just wonderful. And amazing, I mean, the damage that he could do with those tusks if he wanted to would be substantial and obviously extremely traumatic. But although he looks like he's shoving his colleague very hard, and I mean, certainly if we were human beings, it would be extremely hard. For the elephants, of course, that's not the case. Let me just reverse back a bit. I think these are worth spending a bit of time with, these chaps. We're heading towards quarantine clearings. Hello, Catherine. You want to know if these elephants are playful or actually fighting? There's a little bit of both, but it's largely playful. They've got slightly beyond the age where playing is a genuine option. This is much more it's kind of a dominance hierarchy thing. It is kind of play wrestling, but there is an element of seriousness to it. And that element is the dominance hierarchy that is being asserted. And that's simply a function of size. You can see the one on the left of your picture is much larger than the one moving out to the right there. I think also elephants, you know, it's funny. When we drive up to them, they quite often spend a bit of time looking at us and smelling us. I mean, and a lot of them know us. Well, I mean, they know vehicles. And I think that they get bored, you know. I think they get bored eating all day long. And there's a bit of entertainment when we come along, as long as they don't feel threatened. See how perfect the light is. Beautiful golden light. Right, well, I think we'll probably leave them to graze off into the clearing here. And let's head down. We're going to go towards the southern boundary. The Birmingham boys were calling there most of last night. I think they've probably gone south, but we'll see. And then also, of course, rather hoping that Karula might pop across at some stage. And, of course, we're getting to 2 months old for her babies, and that means we'll be able to start viewing them fairly soon, probably in the next day or so if they come across here. So that's good news. Let's head across to Jamie. She has got a small, wise bird to show you.
Now he's flown away. He's perched on a tree. There he is. That's lovely. Grey hornbill greeting the morning. Well, at least we got to see him slightly, even if he did disappear at exactly the wrong moment. Let's see if he calls. It always looks so joyful, the grey hornbill call. Like they're shouting their joy to the skies. The birds are all going wild this morning. Lots and lots of calls. But yes, good morning. My name is Jamie. I have Wium with me.
Hello, everybody. I'm just looking for tracks on the road. Sorry about Jamie's lack of signal. Tortoise tracks, some hyena tracks, and an elephant track, unsurprisingly. But no leopard tracks. The stage. Now, we have to, in the next few days, try and find the hyena den, which has disappeared. It might be that they were just not there yesterday. I did check the 2 on Aubrey's Road. I didn't find any hyenas there, which was a bit distressing for me, of course. I've missed my hyena friends over the last 2 weeks. But I'm sure we'll find them in due course. Possibly will take us having a bit of a wander about there on foot. There are areas there in that sort of general vicinity that are almost accessible. So that's actually quite nice. There and see if we can't find them on foot. Some of you are also wondering why it is that we're not doing the bushwalks at the moment. The reason is the camera is in for repairs. Hello, James. You say, perhaps are playing an April Fool's joke on us. Ha 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 ha. James Richard, I'm not sure if you heard me reiterating your comment, but you say because of April Fools we should find an African joker. We need to do that, certainly. We had lots of discussions over what sorts of jokes we should play on you all, but I found generally that April Fool's jokes on Safari tend not to work, and I remember a couple of incidents where... Ooh, look at that. This is not a joke. There's a warthog there who thinks we haven't seen him. I will tell you my story shortly. There he is. He's just popped his head out of his burrow. And unlike most animals, of course, a warthog does not want to be in his burrow if there's something else around. So it's almost like a sort of shelter from the elements rather than a shelter from predators. the burrow, and as soon as predators come around, a warthog will explode out of the burrow and disappear. So, where I used to work, or various places I used to work, often somebody on April the 1st, and I guarantee you it's going on all around us right now, somebody will say, just found 10 wild dogs chasing down a kudu, and it'll always be on the farthest corner of the reserve, which of course results in everybody else rushing towards that area only to find either nothing or, say, a cardboard cutout of a wild dog in the tree. And for the rangers, of course, that's relatively amusing. I say relatively. For the guests, of course, who are paying handsomely to be in the reserve, it's generally not considered very amusing in the slightest. And so we kind of decided against doing anything like that, simply because, of course, for those of you who are giving of your valuable time and intellect, chasing cardboard cutouts in trees, well, sometimes it can be quite funny, but sometimes just not so much. It might be something unusual on the afternoon drive. I don't know how funny it will be. It will be quite funny, actually, but it certainly won't be a waste of your time. So keep watching. Right, we're going to head down towards Shibam Road and then around Treehouse Dam. Now, Karula's den, or the last place that we know that she had her cubs, was just south of our boundary in that sort of direction there. And so we're going to keep a lookout and see if we can't find her tracks, and perhaps those are those special little baby leopards. I'd like to see some baby leopards, wouldn't you, Bryan?
Oh, I'd love to. I've never seen leopards in the wild.
Haven't you?
No, not baby leopards.
Oh, marvellous. And of course, Shadow, also blessed with babies. That will be very exciting when they become viewable. What did you see, Bryan? Oh, squirrel. There's obviously a little squirrel's burrow here, or nest. We've got a hare. Little tree squirrel, flattened against the branch, thinks he's invisible, isn't. And I mean, the light is just so perfect this morning, slightly diffused by a mist. And so instead of going that bleached white color that it has most of the summer, it has remained golden red. It's wonderful. He's sitting in what we call a silver cluster leaf tree, and you can see on the top right-hand leaves the silver hairs just shining in the dawnlight there. And the silver cluster leaf often dies off in parts. So half the tree is dead and half is living. And then, of course, that results in insects getting in there. The insects, in turn, attract or open up ways for fungus to get inside. That eats away the heartwood, and then little nests for squirrels and woodpeckers and barbets and other animals form naturally in the tree trunk. And often trees will slough off or sort of sacrifice limbs, especially in a drought. And I mean, there are one or two very large trees around this reserve, we'll try and find some as we go, that have very clearly already sacrificed some of the limbs of the trees because of the drought. And what they do is they just cut off supply, and eventually that piece of the tree will die off, and that often happens with trees in times of nutritional distress. Come on, Wendy. Right, let's go across to Jamie, get an update from her. I'm going to continue going down this way.
Good morning. Let's try that once again. I've just been busy tracking Tingana. Sunset safari. Adult female will find out. Adult
Sorry, Jamie having a bit of a time of it this morning. We haven't found anything since we last saw you, except a pile of steaming elephant dung, which is always a nice thing in the morning. Haven't heard anything on the radio today, so not much going on out here, apart from the wonderful elephants we had. Let's just have a quick look at this thing. A very lovely picture there of a community spider's web. And while Bryan zooms in on that, I must apologise once more for my appalling headdress. I did kind of forget to get a hat, and then I thought on my last day on leave I'll get one. I travelled to 7 different stores, none of which had a brandless kind of a greenish hat like Brent's. That's the one I wanted. So I had to just duct tape this one together when I arrived home, and it is embarrassing, of course, and it will be got rid of as soon as possible. Now that is a community spider's web. Of course, nothing looks like spider's web or cobwebs in the morning light, and in there will be hundreds of little spiders just waking up. And for the arachnophobe, of course, putting your fist into something like that would result in immediate apoplexia. But actually, these little spiders are completely harmless to human beings. Marvellous. On we go. As you can hear, Wendy is well, you know, she's an aging old bat and she does struggle to start, but she's moving along. Jigger is still in hospital, and for those of you who don't know, Jigger is the other Land Rover that we have. 1998 2.8 litre BMW engine, about as reliable as a politician's promise. No tracks of Kurulski at this stage. We will keep an eye out for her, obviously. Some green pigeons just flying off there. Too difficult to film. Looks like Jamie's signal is pretty appalling today, so you might be stuck with me and my lovely hat for 3 hours. I see, and a number of you are asking if I can auction my hat off. Well, let's begin the bidding at $100. What do you say, Bryan? $150 to start. Okay. $150. I think that's a good starting point. I tell you what, somebody had this brilliant idea that we should auction it to charity. Let's see what we can get. And we'll maybe donate it to perhaps a rhino conservation charity, depending on how much we manage to raise. So the bidding is opened at $150. I'm not sure how to do an online auction myself, but I'm sure you can figure it out. Imagine the hat I could buy for $150. So should the price of $150 be achieved or any higher, this hat will be packaged and sent to you, and the remaining cash, after I pay the South African Postal Service, will be donated to a rhino conservation cause, I think. Maybe not a rhino conservation cause. We'll come up with some other something. Maybe the local school. I think that would be a better idea. Lots of hyena tracks around here. And I just love finding standing water like this. Little terrapins flitting about in it. And of course, animals do love to come and have a drink at this sort of water. And that's why the dams are not quite as full of animals as they might be. Although yesterday at the Djuma Dam, there was a huge amount of buffalo activity. Wonderful mud for the warthogs and buffalo and elephants to use, keep themselves cool, get rid of the ticks. And a very strong smell, of course. And that is from the dung that is all over the place. Linda, I was wondering exactly the same thing as you just asked. You're in Canada and you say the catfish come back to life. I didn't spend as long as I wanted to yesterday at the Juma Dam, and so I don't know if any of them have been seen. I didn't see any, but I would imagine that if they're around, they have come back to life, yeah. We'll be able to see, we'll maybe pop over to Buffleshoek Dam a little bit later and see if we can't have a look there, because that's got quite a lot of water in it. And as we know, catfish in great abundance. Now we're on the southern boundary, and it is here. The Karula was just in there. It's a reserve called Little Gowrie, and so we'll just keep an eye out on the road here and see if she hasn't crossed back to the north. The fact that there seems to be so little vehicle activity here tells me that perhaps they have a sighting of her down to the south, but that is wild conjecture at this stage. Bryan, this overwhelming sunshine is going to result in my taking my jacket off. Of course, in South Africa, I don't know if this happens in the rest of the world, but, you know, men are often of the impression that in order to show their manliness, they can't wear a jersey. They must be freezing cold. I don't subscribe to this. Bryan, of course, definitely doesn't subscribe to this. And it is an abiding mystery of our times that in 2016, of course, people think that their manliness is demonstrated by their ability to freeze themselves. I suppose men are difficult to understand in general. So we're going to drive very slowly along the road here and see if we can't find some tracks of the leopard. And if not, perhaps we'll find out where the Birmingham boys went. Because they, of course, were just over there on Twin Dams yesterday. And so if you'll excuse me not looking you in the eye while I talk too much right now, we're going to keep looking at the ground and seeing what has gone hither and yon during the course of the night. And we always like to say that the road is the bush newspaper of the morning. Oh, we've got a couple of bids coming in for the hat. Kirstie, anything above $150? Donna, you bid $151. So far, it's yours. I think we'll probably wait 2 weeks or so that I can get another hat before we package it and send it off to you, Donna. Well, anyone else, of course, can bid higher than $151. I wonder if this humble piece of equipment ever thought it would be bad for that much money. And as I was saying, we do like to say the road is known as the bush newspaper. Hello, GP Frog. GP Frog, you say, is this an auction in Zimbabwean dollars? No, GP Frog, this is in good old American hard greenbacks. Now, Zimbabwean dollar, of course, for those of you who don't know, no longer exists. And when it finally went out of existence, I think the exchange rate was something stupid, and I kid you not here, like 1 billion Zimbabwean dollars to $1 US. So you can go to Zimbabwe these days and people will sell you these notes, these astonishing notes that just kept being printed by the Zimbabwean mint. You know, with one, and then they do things like just chop off 3 zeros from, because it was impossible to fit the number of zeros onto the banknotes. So now they just use American dollars there. So what used to be a really cheap holiday destination for South Africans is no longer. There is another game drive driving along the road here, and perhaps they will give us a bit of an update as to what's going on with our dear Karula and her little babies. There we go. Looks like Peter. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Any updates from your side?
There was my daughter Ngala from Birmingham that crossed.
Did they cross south?
Into
Oh,
north.
into Vuatela?
No, to
Into Buffleshoek?
Tortoise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the sticks are here on Hoffman's, and that is about it.
Okay, cool. No update on Karula at this stage.
No one has been to follow up there.
Okay.
I'm sure the guys will after the
Lions.
gala. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic.
Have a good day.
You too.
Enjoy the drive.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. That's Peter from Nkorho. And his guests are probably 6 of the most aged people I've ever seen in my life. Bryan, what did you say? At least 120 each? Yes, at least. They had a kind of startled look on their faces. Maybe they'd been driving quite quickly. Anyway, I hope they're enjoying their safari. I'm sure they are. Sounds like there's lots of animals around. So he was just saying the Birmingham males are on Torchwood, which is to the northeast, basically straight into the sun. But no sign of Karula at this stage. Jamie is going back to the Democratic Republic of the Congo to meet with Eugene and Connor. I'm not sure if any of you have met Connor yet, but Connor is our new engineer. Sorry, I'm just going to pull off the road. There's a deeply irking car driving up behind me. It's high speed. Hello. Oh, I'll just let him go past. Just listen to that, everyone. That is the sound of a car not designed to be in this area. Rattling to pieces. There's the beautiful sun, now turning yellow from the orange that it began. Right, on we go. Come on, Wendy, don't give up on us now. And so Jamie's going to have Rusty looked at. We're not sure why. She's not broadcasting at the moment. Bryan does say that the aerial was a bit dodgy yesterday, so maybe that's what the problem is. Anyway, so from the great abundance of 4 lions that we had yesterday, they've gone. Hello, Brenda. You're in Virginia, and you're asking about the leopard cubs, which hopefully we will be watching fairly soon. You want to know who's older, Karulas or Shadows? Karulas, by my reckoning, are at least 3 weeks older than Shadows, and maybe even 4 weeks. They might actually be a month older. So we know pretty much that Karulas were born on the 3rd of February, so that makes them 2 weeks old, at least 2 months old in 2 days' time. Shadows, we're not sure exactly because she wasn't seen. We were just very lucky to see Karula exactly the day before she gave birth. Shadow, we're not sure, so probably about 4 weeks after that. Yeah, and so that's what it is. Shadows, and it's interesting to work out the relationship between the 2 sets of cubs, of course, because Karula is Shadow's mother. So they are, while Shadow's cubs are Karula's grandchildren, they are also cousins to, Bryan, have we got? Lion. Okay, I think that's the males from yesterday. They are also cousins to Shadow's cubs. And if so they're also siblings to Shadow. Half siblings to Shadow and cousins to her offspring. It's all rather confusing when you look at it from a human point of view. Okay, we're turning up towards Twin Dams. I was hoping to follow up on the lions, but as Peter says, they've been found on Torchwood. And so, well, I don't know if they've been. And I think what they're doing is they're moving around this area because this is hopeless. This is hopeless. Okay, as I was saying, that I think that the Birmingham boys are moving around this area so much because the Salati males seem to be spending a bit of time on Buffleshoek at the moment, and so they will be just making sure that their borders are maintained. Can you believe it, Bryan? There is water in twin dams. This is the first time I think either of us have seen this, what, 3 months? I think it warrants a little foray towards the shoreline, and let's see what we can see there. Look at all that. Now, there were catfish here, of course. So, Linda, I think it was you who was asking about the catfish. Let's see if we can see some catfish bubbles. I shall take my powerful binoculars and look out over the waters. You can see a 3-banded plover at one end. And let's see if we can't find some bubbles of catfish. There are some bubbles around, so there may well be catfish. You can also hear in the background lots of birds. And the ones I want you to try and hear are the red-faced mouse birds. Okay. Also, you can hear a beautiful sound of a diesel pump in the background. Obviously, one of the lodges pumping water. So lots of terrapins in the water. I haven't seen any obvious catfish evidence. But there must be catfish in here. I mean, even if they're just little ones. But I don't see any of those great big ones that are maybe still under the mud, but they might be in there. There was, of course, when I was very new to this job, I went walking into this dam to see if I could find some. That was a mistake, simply because although it looks fairly solid between the dry land and the water, it is not. And long before you get anywhere near the water, you sink up to your thighs in gooey, smelly mud. So unless I'm particularly desperate, I don't think I'm going to head out there and see if I can find a catfish. We'll hopefully see one, or see it breathing. As you can see, my powerful binoculars have made it unscathed through my leave. Kirstie arrived back with some Leica binoculars, which of course are of an almost as exceptional quality as these beautiful binoculars. They're quite character-filled, I feel. Kirstie says we can swap. I think we might do that, actually. I'm not sure what she's going to see in the final control binoculars. Isn't that amazing to see the standing water like that? It's got a real kind of summer feel about the landscape at the moment, but for the fact that the temperature has mercifully dropped. And although it was quite hot yesterday, it certainly wasn't unpleasant. And this, I think the next 2 months, temperature-wise, March, at least April and May, are the 2 best months to be out here, just from a temperature point of view. I mean, it's always nice out here from an animal point of view. From a temperature point of view, April and May, just gorgeous. Interesting question from Costin. I think it's Costin. You want to know if I missed anything while I was away. Is there anything that I kind of felt I missed out on while I was away? No, I don't think so, simply because I knew I'd be back. And if there'd been a huge amount of activity with Karula's cubs, then I would have felt a little bit jealous of things. But no, I don't feel like I missed out on too much. Not because nothing happened, but because I knew I'd be back fairly soon. And it's always good to go and get some perspective away from a place like this, I find, because, I mean, you can get quite blasé about the fact that you live in one of the world's most iconic national parks. You could drive around anywhere you like, You're in this open, magnificent Land Rover. You're just exploring all day long, learning new things all day long. And, I mean, one always does have to pinch oneself and say, well, of course, this is work. And being away from it is a nice way to kind of make sure you understand how lucky you are to be doing this. Of course, my brother is about to drive off to the Standard Bank in Johannesburg, as is his wife. My sister is probably about to get on a tube in London. Well, probably not yet, but, you know, she will do later on, to go and work in her law firm. Something is very upset here. Very angry squirrel. Now, we're not far from the Wahlberg's eagle's nest, but I haven't seen a Wahlberg's eagle since I got back, and I wonder if they haven't departed. There's the squirrel, Bryan. It's right, it's just hidden behind this tree. It's gone up into the thickets there. I don't think we'll see it. Stopped calling, though. I think there's anything here. We might do double back down through the Mulwati drainage. Anyway, so like I was saying, I mean, all of these people, and I mean, many of you, of course, and of course, you should be watching this in the office because that's the only way you can probably get through the day. I'm just so very privileged, and Bryan and I are both very privileged that we don't have to do that. We fall out of bed into the Land Rovers on a daily basis, drink a quick cup of coffee in my case, and here we are in our office, which is just such a tremendous privilege. And so being on leave is a very good way, Costin, of consolidating that feeling and appreciating the fortunate way in which my career has unfolded. Very astute question from Cheryl in California. You want to know which trees will continue to grow horizontally when they've been pushed over by elephants. Well, Cheryl, they don't grow horizontally. I'll find you an example. They change direction. Is pushed over. Marulas do it if their rootstock remains intact. The Combretum do. A lot of the bush willows will be able to do it. Did she say hold off speaking? Okay, we are back, everyone. Sorry about this dodgy signal. I'm really sure what we can do about it. But if a tree is pushed over, growing in the same direction, it falls over, and then the branches that are on what was the vertical trunk and is now the horizontal trunk will start to grow up, and eventually one of them will take over as the main trunk of the tree. I'll try and find you an example. Well, here's a quite interesting example. It's not quite what we were talking about. Well, it is actually. If you look at this tree here, this is a silver cluster leaf again. You can see it's been broken off there. The tree has then sacrificed the piece that's been broken off, and new leaves are coming out from where it was snapped. So that's a leadwood, but just behind it, Bryan, once you finish that one, just to the left there, that's it. That snap part there is a different tree, I think. Yeah, and that's a silver cluster leaf there. So lots of trees, amazing adaptations to surviving elephants. I mean, I think what you'll find is that if you were to take a North American tree or any tree in an area where elephants don't occur, if you were to take one of those trees and snap them in half, they'd die almost immediately. But these trees have adapted to coping. I'm just going to jump out the car quickly. I can see some very bright green leaves that I don't recognize. So hold on, everyone. I'll be back now, Bryan. This, of course, is a tree that I do know it. I just saw it looking rather bright green and didn't know if it was what I thought it was. It's called, a round-leaf teak. And the round-leaf teak survives amazing attacks from elephant. And that bush from which it comes, which you can just see perhaps over the top of these trees, is probably, I'll walk it. It's probably about 6 feet in diameter at the base. But the tree itself comes up in lots and lots of different stems. And that's because as soon as they get to any length, the elephants come and break them off. And so the rootstock of the tree has become this enormous kind of woody mass, probably weighs at least a ton under the ground. And that's how it survives. So great question. And some beautiful white flowers here, the names of which I have forgotten. There are lots of them, don't worry. So I wouldn't normally pick a single bloom on its own, but these ones I don't mind picking because there are so many of them. I should know what these are called, and I used to, but I've forgotten. I'm going to take them with me. Lovely. Right. You can hear the green spotted dove going. Oh, there it is. Oh dear, that's not good. I managed to shut the wire in the door. I hope that I'll be able to hear Kirstie again. Maybe not. She'll be very cross with me then. Ah, there we go. Okay, right. Jamie is back up and going, so while I fight off the flies, go and get an update from her. We'll keep checking in this area.
Good morning, and while James has been fighting off the flies, we have been fighting off the gremlins that appeared to have attacked Rusty at the start of this morning. So let's try this again for the third time. Hello, good morning, my name is Jamie, and I have Wium on camera with me this morning. And while we were fighting off gremlins, we also tracked Tingana from where he had his warthog kill yesterday on Boyatela Access Road. He crossed west into Simbambili, so a property just on our western side of our Traverse area, and he's gone off towards where there's a nice big pan to have a drink. He might come back, he might not. I don't think he's going to come back. Unfortunately, it seems as though, judging by the tracks, the hyena clan paid Tingana a visit last night and managed to appropriate his warthog kill. So he's lost that again. Apparently, he was trying to hoist it yesterday afternoon with relatively little success in that regard. Not sure if that was just because he had a very full belly and was struggling. Either way, he has lost it now. Judy, you were just wondering about Tingana's warthog kill. We see the same groups or the same sounders, as is the correct collective noun for warthogs. We see the same sounders in the same areas generally. And you were wondering, was that warthog that Tingana got a male or a female? I'm not 100% sure. I did pay a visit to that sighting yesterday while James and Brent were out and about. And it was a large warthog, but it looked like it might be a female. It looks like one of the two females that we see regularly around those areas in the mud wallows there. So I think it was a female, but I'm not 100% sure. It was a bit difficult to tell, given the amount that he had fed on it. And generally, with predators, they usually start feeding in the softer areas, so around the groin area, and then also around the nose and the face, which of course is what you look for when you're trying to tell the difference between a male and a female warthog. Since we're here, we're just going to pay a quick visit to the hyena den. You checked it out yesterday. Oh, okay. Wium's just letting me know that James and himself checked this old den yesterday. It seems as though the hyenas have gone walkabout from their usual den site on Aubrey's Road. Isn't it amazing how they've moved as frequently as they have from that Aubrey's Road den? My suspicion is that they are still somewhere in that vicinity, somewhere close, and that they haven't moved too far away. So that might be one of the things we'll try and tackle today, is figure out where those hyenas have disappeared off to. I don't think that they've gone terribly far. The other thing that I wanted to do and attempted to do several times this morning was to get up to Buffleshoek Cutline. Last night, the lions were calling almost non-stop from 9 o'clock at night until 4 o'clock this morning. And it sounded as though it might have been the Salati males calling towards the Birmingham boys, or it was the one absent Birmingham boy calling to the rest of the coalition. And that's what I want to try and sort of establish. You've seen the 4 Birmingham boys together, minus Scrapper, or Tokolosh, or Tsotsi, depending on who you ask what his name is. But he's been looking exceptionally thin since we've last, or when I last saw him. I don't necessarily think that the fact that we haven't seen him means anything that we need to be concerned about, but it is interesting behavior that he has moved off on his own. And it's so fascinating the way that lion personalities within a coalition come to the forefront once they've established themselves in a territory. Scrapper's always been. He was the male that carried around the Styx cub that he killed. Oh, and on that subject, I'm not sure if James has let you know. Most of you know by now, but the very pregnant Styx female has had her cub. She's denning somewhere off to the south of our boundary. That's wonderful news. Apparently it was discussed last night. But yes, just back to Scrapper, it is interesting how his personality has developed. He was the first one that we saw properly mating with the Nkorho females after they took over from the Matimbas. He was the male that carried around the Styx cubs. I don't know if he killed the Styx cubs initially, not now, when they conducted their takeover. Either way, he seems to be off on his own quite frequently. Just an interesting aspect of their dynamics. But let us go and investigate Buffleshoek boundary and see if there isn't a sign of them somewhere around there. Now, with the discussion about the Styx female, it's always, life of a lion is a very, very tricky thing. And survival rates can be relatively low, depending on what's happening if there's a takeover, for example. And M. Kiss was wondering, sorry, let me just listen to this update. Just listening to updates about lions. I'm just going to pull off the road quickly. There's a vehicle that wants to get past. Two Birminghams. Interesting. So it was the Salatis and the Birmingham boys last night, and two of the Birmingham boys have pushed the Salati males out of. Okay. All right, so two Birmingham boys have pushed the Salati males right to the north of Buffleshoek, which is the property on our northern side of our boundary, into Manuleti, and are now coming back towards us. We'll keep listening. That must have been the lions that I heard on this boundary earlier. It is what we suspected. They have been having a bit of a clash. And it's so interesting because when the Birmingham boys first entered onto the scene and first sort of, before they even seriously considered conducting a takeover, when they were scoping out the area, they met up with the Salati males, and the Salati males gave them a very thorough hiding. I've seen the video that one of the landowners showed me. Now, however, it seems as though the tables have turned. One of the Salati males apparently, the last time I saw them was months ago, but apparently one of the Salati males has a very, very bad limp. So their coalition is definitely weakened by that injury. I'll keep listening and I'll keep you updated as to what's happening there. Just to go back to the discussion we were having about the Styx cubs, M. Kiss was wondering if a female or if a lioness is killed in a natural way, would we, and she has cubs, would we ever take in those cubs and raise them until they're old enough? And that's a very broad question. If that lioness was killed through intervention of humans, let's say, for example, she made her way outside of the fence or she got caught in a snare, then yes, we would consider it because that is due to human beings' influence. The chances of that happening here, completely unlikely. If she died of natural causes, then no, we wouldn't. And it's always a difficult line to draw, and that's why we don't interfere where it is a natural situation. So if an animal is killed through natural or under natural circumstances, you have to let nature play out the way that it would without our intervention. And the difficulty is you can go and take those cubs in, and then what? You bottle feed them, you'll have to if they're little, or you feed them from a truck. Either way, they do not learn to be wild. And so they have the prospect for the rest of their life is to live in some kind of enclosure. They can never be released. They'll be a danger to human beings. They'll be probably unable to survive without the hunting lessons that they need. So unfortunately, no, we don't. We will not take them in. These are the old leopard tracks, looking a bit faded. It's always a difficult and emotive decision, but it's not one that it's not a situation where we can interfere. And as we slowly check along Buffleshoek boundary, listening for the lions calling again, you never know, there might still be Birmingham boys along this boundary, the rest of the coalition. Lucy in Indiana would like to know, why do lions call at night, or more at night than they do during the day? And I know that just after the sunset safari ended last night, the Birmingham boys all started calling together. And Lucy would like to know, is it because they sleep during the day? Pretty much. Lions sleep during the day. One of the big reasons they sleep during the day is that it is too hot for them to move about. As you can imagine, calling like that is a very physical activity. The lions have muscles constructed all the way from their larynx down to connect to their chests, which pulls the voice box or the larynx down when they roar like that. They have to inflate their lungs. It is an energy costing action, calling to each other. That's one reason that they don't call during the day. Well, they do occasionally, but it's usually they spend their day sleeping. The other reason is that a call will travel further than it will during the day, and that's because the colder the air, the further the sound will travel. Now, on cold nights, that sound can travel up to, or can be heard by the lions, up to easily 10 kilometers, so just under 5 miles in distance. If not even more, depending on where if they're on a crest or if they're in a dip, it will change the dynamics a little bit. And mostly it's also that lions are nocturnal. That is when they are the dominant apex predator. And that is when they are the most active during their day. Settled. Morning, guys. Oh, little one. Hello, baby. Oh, but you're too cute. Ew. Look at it using its trunk, or trying to. That coordination's just not quite there. Look at the foot in the air. What is that funny thing on the end of your face, baby? It is so entertaining to watch an elephant at this age attempting to... Oh, well done, you've got a leaf. How does that taste? Attempting to learn to use its trunk and to coordinate in the same way Mom is doing at the back. They do take a good 2 years before they get fully coordinated in using it. And this little one, just looking at her, she's under a year old. Probably close, coming up to about 6 months, which is when elephants start feeding on solid food. And she will start to snack and supplement her mom's milk with leaves and grass. But that whole process is still a little bit of a struggle. It's like a toddler learning to use a spoon for the first time. Little one? Sure. I'm not sure if you heard that trumpet coming off towards our right. One very upset young elephant. Accompanied by the low rumble of an adult comforting. It was probably a youngster. Generally, the youngsters tend to make those very high-pitched, almost screaming sounds, like they're yelling. And it's almost always a baby that makes that sound that's been harassed either by another elephant or having a weaning tantrum. When their mothers try to stop them from suckling once they're about a year and a half old, they have tantrums, proper tantrums. They will squeal and screech at their moms to try and get to be allowed to feed. Luckily, this is not something this little one has to deal with for a while still, which is a good thing, because at the moment the trunk doesn't quite coordinate itself as it should. Let's go forward a little bit. Hold on, let's just watch what this baby does, which way it goes. There you go. Oh, you found some spike thorn. Here's another elephant screech. You can see by the reaction of the adults and by the youngsters that upset elephant that is calling to the west of us isn't upset for any reason that would be a danger to them. So they are intelligent enough to have different vocalizations and different calls that mean different things. And clearly these elephants know that that is not a serious communication, that is just an elephant having its personal space invaded, possibly. That plant that the little baby was interested there is known as a spike thorn. And it's interesting because baby elephants will very often feed on that. It's got an astringent substance to the leaf, which essentially takes away all of your saliva and makes your gums go numb. I have eaten them before. I've eaten them live before. And that actually apparently helps them tremendously when they start to teeth. So essentially it acts as like a tea gel or a special teething ointment for baby elephants. It might have been why that little one was having a good sniff around there. And speaking of the different plants that we could get out here, Kyle was wondering if we have the equivalent of poison oak or poison ivy that we have to avoid whilst walking through the bush. And Kyle, once or twice I've had tremendous allergic reactions to perennial and invader weeds that have come through. Not so much in Djuma, I haven't encountered them here, but I have in other parts of South Africa. But generally, no, we don't have a major problem with... Our African plants are differently adapted to avoiding being fed on or overutilized. So elephants feeding would cause the release of bitter tannins. Stops them from overutilizing an area, so the plants produce a very bitter substance. Oh, little one. Hey, mommy's gone. Our little one has just disappeared into or behind a series of elephant legs, but Dory says that baby elephants always look as though they are smiling. I agree, actually. That's a very good description. I really think they do look like that. The nice thing about baby elephants as well is because they don't need to feed constantly, they've got access to their mother's rich milk, they get bored and they find ways to entertain themselves, and that can be, in turn, hugely entertaining for us to observe. Whether it be learning how to use their trunks, or whether it's coming to play and have a look at the vehicle, as happened to me this morning with a different elephant herd before the start of our sunrise safari. I'm just going to go forward a little bit. I want to see if I can see the elephant that's been making all of this noise. It's not too far. Oh, I can actually see it. And I know exactly what it is. It looks like it's a young male. They're going to come to us. Hello, guys. What it might have been is a baby responding to the presence of a young male or the pressure of a young male. Just wait for them to come out. I'm hoping, just judging by the dynamics, it might be the elephant with the snared trunk and her little female calf. I saw her yesterday. Somebody's having a snack. Apparently they were seen yesterday evening on the sunset safari. I saw them on quarantine whilst moving between my house and the main camp. They are around, and in fact I'm fairly certain that they're going to come through, or she's going to come through. One shouldn't have favourites, but she's definitely mine. I love watching her. It's quite a big herd, so possibly not. I can't think of a better way to start my morning. And it's so nice to see the elephants eating grass again. It's all right, little one. Don't panic. Oh, there's a tiny baby there. Look at them all bunched together, crossing the road. A little baby. And that could well be 3 sets of calves. So the oldest one in front, the middle one, and the youngest one. Those could all be the calves of the same mother on the right. They look about the right age gap between them. That's so special. All the siblings moving together. You see how the little one showing signs of anxiety, tail stiffly held out at 90 degrees to its body, running behind Mom. And I wonder if this is not three siblings, all of different ages. Elephant sightings like this are always accompanied by this gentle, low rumbling that comes from the older females in the group, communicating with each other, communicating with the rest of the herd, comforting where comfort is needed, and directing and controlling where that is necessary as well. Sometimes we are able to hear the rumbles and sometimes we are not. But I must say it is a tremendously comforting feeling in the sounds that they make. Good morning to Liz, who is watching in Wisconsin, and Liz would like to know, elephants can't run, they can only walk quickly. And Liz, to an extent, yes, that is absolutely true. They can run. It is more than what I would describe as a fast walk. This is what I would think of, or the way that that elephant just crossed the road is what I would think of as a fast walk. They can move very, very quickly, but they can't gallop like an antelope can gallop or like a zebra can gallop. You can't really lift more than 2 feet off the ground at any one time. And I've never seen an elephant jump either. They're not really built for that kind of agility. But I wouldn't describe their fastest stride as a walk. I would maybe describe it almost like a trot, the way that they can move. But I suppose when your legs are 2 meters long, oh, look at this greeting. That's got to be 2 young boys. I love watching elephant dynamics within the calves themselves. They demonstrate such interesting behavior. I've seen 2 herds come together and 2 young boys racing, each from a different herd, racing towards each other to go and say hello, to put their trunks around the temporal gland region of their buddy, and then to start roughhousing and playing. And you could see it very clearly that they knew each other. In this case, I think these 2 are from the same herd, so they're cousins of a similar age. Pushing backwards and forwards. At this point, tusks are a little bit too small to be involved, so trunks will have to suffice. This is just a playful scrap between the 2 young males. But Red, you were wondering, when I spoke about that baby's tail, you were wondering if when a elephant's tail is straight out away from their bodies, is it a sign of distress or aggression or both? The answer is more distress than anything else, but I always hesitate to use the word aggression because a lot of the time what we interpret as aggression has come from fear. The way that they're responding to, say, us or a different situation, because they are so unsettled, they respond in what we see as aggressive, in an aggressive manner. But yes, the tail straight out is a sign of an upset elephant. Let's put it that way. And when there's proper aggression shown, and the only real situation that occurs is with 2 large males fighting over females, or when they're chasing another animal away from the waterhole, it will be a sign of both. There's just a tiny little baby I want to show you before they all decide to disappear into the drainage line. Lots and lots of youngsters within this herd. Also struggling with the trunk. Sometimes baby elephants have a very disoriented look about them. Like they are completely confused. Most of our elephants have moved off behind the trees. Oh, no, never mind, sorry. Here she comes in front of us and baby will come with her. I can hear lions too. Interesting. I'm just going to take my earpiece out for one moment. So the lions are calling at Buffleshoek. Isn't that fascinating that at this time of day, in these temperatures, and it has got very hot all of a sudden, that those lions are still calling. And that tells us immediately that they are currently, that there was some serious events, that some serious events occurred last night between the Birmingham boys and the Salatis, because the Birmingham boys are now constantly vocalizing to reinforce their status as the dominant males in this area. Hopefully they're going to come south. We'll just keep listening for updates on the Game Drive channel. I'm going to go back towards Buffleshoek Cutline and just hang around there in the hope that they decide to come through. This is our last elephant that's going to disappear into the drainage line. I'm not going to be following them down there. Very densely vegetated. But a beautifully peaceful way to start off our morning. Right, it's time for me to move on. I'm going to go and see what's happening with those lions. In the meantime, I'm sure that you are wondering what Mr. Henry is up to, so let us find out.
Hello everybody. We've come to the far eastern section of Djuma, and I'm just astonished, first of all, at how it used to be kind of, well, 2 weeks ago it was yellow. All these trees around us were turning a yellow autumnal color, and now they're back to their sort of full summer verdant green. So I didn't think they'd do that. I thought the growth season for them was over. Thought the grass might come up, but I'm astounded that the trees have changed back again. It really is amazing how quickly it happens. The other thing that's happened is that the extra moisture in the soil has provided an opportunity for the termites to build. Now, this is not the mound, but the kind of nest, if you like, of a dry wood termite. And there is one there. There are a few of them here. And what they've done is they build this sort of covering of soil over the wood, and what that does is provide them cover, protection from predators, and also protection from the sun. Where the sun would beat down on them. They don't have melanin in their, I don't suppose you'd call it skin, but in their exoskeletons, and that means that the sun can get quite damaging to them. So they have to either work in the dark, which a lot of termites do, or build these coverings so that they can continue during the day. And they will eat away at this tree. I don't think they'll kill it, but they'll certainly eat away at it. And this is a different kind of termite from the termite that makes the mound. Now, when I was up in Palabola, or just north of there, a little while back, I was doing some teaching of some local, not children, but young adults, and whenever we found a tree like this, they'd stop and they'd pick off the soil and they'd eat it. Bryan? I'm going to warn you, I wouldn't eat too much of it to start with. Here we go. And to this day, I cannot understand why it is that people would eat that. It tastes like sand.
It's sand. It is. It's mud.
It's mud. I just don't understand. It doesn't taste like anything other than sand. Anyway, they used to go wild whenever they saw it, and of course, it's not dissimilar, of course, from animals eating soil for minerals, and obviously I mean, the local diet out here is generally very poor in nutrients. It's a lot of poor people, and so they eat largely maize meal porridge, which is not very good for them. It's not very good for anybody. And so they supplement the diet with things like that. And they'll eat termites, and they'll eat mapani worms, which are caterpillars. I've lost my earpiece. I don't know where to find it. There, I found it. And so something that tastes to those of us on a sort of standard issue Western diet, which tastes like sand, for somebody on a very kind of poor nutrient diet would taste pretty good. Right. We are now about to arrive at Buffleshoek Dam, where I'm hoping to find further evidence of the summer in the form of catfish. I just can't believe it. All of these trees, all of these green, tall Combretum trees around here were yellow when I went on leave 2 weeks ago. Hello, D. Chef. D. Chef, you say you've been away from the drives for a little while and you want to know if Buffleshoek Dam filled up. Well, I'll show you, I won't tell you. We're about to arrive there in the next, probably 20 seconds. And then you will see the extent to which the water has made a difference there. Maybe 25 seconds. There we go, we've arrived. There's a little spot on our lens, apparently, Bryan.
I can't see the spot.
Where's the spot? We can't see the spot, Kirstie. You sure it's not a spot in your eye? This is unbelievable. Look at the amount of water there is in this dam. It went completely dry a little while back. It really is quite astonishing. Now let's look for the telltale signs of catfish. It was a bug. It's a fly. Look at that. There we go. Well done, Bryan.
Thank you.
There's a buffalo sitting alone here. Now, the hippo came back as well. There were 2 hippo here one day. Bob, the bachelor of Buffleshoek, and perhaps his consort, Princess Daisy. But they don't seem to be here now. I'm just trying to see any telltale signs of catfish. I'm 99% sure there. I just saw one pop up. There are definitely catfish in here, as well as terrapins. Plenty of terrapins. In fact, I've never seen so many terrapins as I have this year. There they are. It's got quite hot quite quickly. It began at about 21 degrees Celsius, or 19 degrees Celsius, which is 69 degrees Fahrenheit. So that was quite a cool beginning to the morning. But I think we're probably at about 26 or so, which is pushing 80 degrees now. And that buffalo is chewing the cud after an evening of finding grazing. And on the warmish evenings, of course, it's not cold yet at night by any stretch. And on the warmish evenings, the buffalo will eat during the night. Beautiful, peaceful scene here. Something quite like water in the wild. People are drawn to it amazingly. They always want to go and sit in the water and have their sundowners over water. It's something that makes us feel a tremendous sense of peace around water. Hello, Costin, you're back again. You want to know if these terrapins, which are called serrated hinged terrapins, are or have any natural predators in the water. Well, crocodiles would eat them, yes, But they have they produce a very stinky substance. So if you catch one, if you pick one up, you will never pick another one up because they produce a very foul-smelling stink. So while something like a tortoise, which might be attacked by ground hornbills and even hyenas and lions, I think you'll find that a terrapin has fewer predators. When they're very little, I'm sure the birds try and eat them, but when they're big like some of these ones are, I think there are probably very few that can actually get very few things in a dam like this. I mean, there are no crocodiles here at the moment. I think very few things will try and eat them, which probably explains why there are so many of them. Now, Megan, you want to know what a terrapin is. Well, that's a very valid question, of course, because you don't get terrapins in all parts of the world. A terrapin is a freshwater turtle, if you like. There's one, that's its head, so it's got a shell in the same way that a tortoise or a turtle does, and it has a neck that retracts into the shell but sideways. So unlike a tortoise, which pulls its neck back, straight back in, sorry, I'm just attacked by a biting fly there, pulls its neck straight back into the shell. A terrapin swings it sideways, and they've got a much softer shell than a tortoise does and much flatter, but they live in the water, in the fresh water. So a turtle lives in the sea. A tortoise is a land-dwelling, what we call chelonid. They're from the order Chelonidae. I think it's an order called the Chelonidae. And then terrapins would be the other freshwater version of the chelonids. Nice question. Thank you for that. All right, let's move on from here. I don't think there's tremendous activity going on. Let's see what else we can find. I was hoping desperately that maybe my hero, Mvula, might arrive. He has been around. I suppose there was, if there's something that I missed out on while I was away, it was a couple of good sightings of Mvula. Come on, Wendy. Off we go. It's definitely starting to get quite steamy out here. So despite the fact that we're now in April, which is definitely autumn, it'll probably hit 34 degrees or so Celsius today. Oh. Rebecca, you're in Maryville, which sounds like a nice place to be. I don't know where that is. In the US. You want to know about the Shangaan names of animals, and because Peter was referring to Ngala, which are lions, of course, in Shangaan. You want to know, is that how we communicate with each other? It is to a certain extent. It's a bit of a bugbear of mine, to be honest. I don't mind if people speak Shangaan. I think that's great. I don't mind if people speak Zulu. I do mind if people speak a mixture of the two, because I think it's, well, it's just a bit disrespectful, really, to a very beautiful local language. And so what has become a habit out here is that people come and they use a language that we call Fanagalo, which the origins of which I can explain at some other stage. But basically, it's a mixture of languages. And so people will talk, they'll use the Shangaan or Zulu word for an animal, and they'll say, I've found some Ngala, or I've found an Ingwe, or I've found some Ndlovu. And that's Ingwe is a leopard, and Ndlovu is the Zulu word, not the Shangaan word for elephant. And so it's this kind of mixture, and the reason they do it is because in the old days, they didn't want their guests to know what else had been found, because they didn't want their guests to think that they were always going to go to those sightings. And in those days, of course, the radios were open communication, so you didn't have an earpiece in your ear. The guests could hear what was going on the radio. Now, I never found that an issue because, you know, we just used to explain to the guests that we weren't going to go to a particular sighting that was too far away, and nobody ever complained about it. But what it does, so that's originally why people used to use the words. So I found some Ngala, and then, you know, it would be a mystery from their guests. And I just think that that's A, disrespectful to the local language, and B, disrespectful to the guests. But it's certainly not meant like that, but that's how it's developed. And so it's become a habit, and people use the Shangaan or Zulu words rather than the English words. And I just think that South Africa, of course, is a pretty conflicted place in many respects. And learning a local language is one of the best ways to reduce any conflict that there can be. And so I think using the local language in the form of the local language is a brilliant idea. But mixing it with other languages, I think it's a bit old school. Very nice question there. Thank you. Right, we're going to go into some doll area. Let's go.
Since James is checking out around Buffleshoek Dam, and it sounds as though the guys have located the rest of the Birmingham males around Torchwood, so to the east of our boundary, I've decided to change my plan for the morning. Come across to Sydney's dam, just to see if there's any sign of the Nkorho's coming back from their last known location, which was around Simbabili, to the northwest of our boundary. All is quiet, however. There's nothing except for one or two hippo in Sydney's dam. So let's continue on. We'll go and check out Arathusa as well. There is, however, a herd of zebra just to the south of where we are. So let's go have a look at them first before we head across in that direction. It's amazing how, with the rains that we've had and with the amount of greenery that's about, what you got? Some serious hairballs. Oh, that's interesting. Liam's just spotted something for us to look at. I'm going to move the car a little bit further away so I can see where they are. The terrible thing about being this short is that you can't quite see over the left-hand side of your car. There we go. I can see them. So, look at that. Well, that could be one of two things. It could be a hairball that's been coughed up, but most likely, I think that's actually predator scat, old predator scat. Look at how much hair is in that. Probably lion, just judging by the amount and the size of it. Now, that is definitely something you do not want to be touching with your bare hands. I'm more than willing to jump off the car and look at elephant dung or antelope dung, but predator scat is definitely off the cards in that sense. Carries all kinds of parasites. Now, this is something that is so fascinating about the way that animals feed in their digestive systems. With lions and leopards, they consume enormous amounts of fur and skin, and that comes through either being coughed up as hairballs or being excreted out in their scat. But with hyena, then they will consume exactly the same amount. Their stomach acid is so potent and their digestive system is so efficient that you never ever see this kind of texture in their scat. Well spotted, Wium. There's also particular types of dung beetle that will spend time around that scat. You might have spotted that particular beetle moving about there. So specifically adapted, unlike the regular dung beetle that we very often see rolling their dung balls along, they are specific, and they're usually a ruby color, the dung beetles that are adapted for that particular kind of defecation, or utilizing that particular kind of defecation. It's one of the dung beetles that I'm a little bit less comfortable with having crawling over me. just because of all of the parasites that are covered, that are within predator scat itself. Now, you hear me using the term or referring to scat, dung, and feces, just to be properly correct in our terminology. Zebra, like the ones we're looking at the moment, and any other herbivore, they excrete dung. So a herbivore's defecation is called dung. A predator's defecation, or carnivore's defecation, is called scat. And an omnivore, such as humans or baboons or jackals, their defecation is known as feces. So there is a distinction between the different types. Lovely zebra herd. Trying to flick away the flies. Amazing how fast the foals grow. We've been seeing this foal for the last 2 months, and it's gone from a tiny, fluffy little creature to almost the same height as the adults. We've got a nice example as they swish the flies away of just telling the difference between a male and a female zebra, because it's not always that easy. The two zebra that you can see, the foal on the left and the one in the center, those are males. That thin black stripe between the cheeks of the bottom underneath the tail, that's what it tells us that it is a male. Difficult to see the other two individuals at the back. There must be a female there, since there is a foal with us. They have a much thicker stripe running down the center of their bottoms. You can also judge it by watching their behavior. The stallion in the herd will always place himself between the herd and any kind of threat or any kind of danger. And when zebra are walking in a line, they are always led by the female in front. And it's his dominant female, the mare that he acquired first in his adult life. She takes the highest rank within his harem. And she decides where the herd goes, and she ensures their safety from the front. He will walk behind and act as a rear guard. And the rest of the mares will fall into place. And it's amazing, they have a very, very set order in which they walk. And they will kick and they will bite until that order is established. Zebra can be very aggressive animals, and particularly with the females. A male will go and fight another stallion in order to add to his harem. And the female that he collects from another stallion, if he wins that fight, will either be that stallion's daughter, or it will be his least favorite mare. And when that poor female enters the new harem, she is right at the bottom of the hierarchy. And for a considerable period of time, she will be kicked and bitten and pushed out to the outskirts, defended only by the male that has added her to his collection, so to speak. And it's only after an extended period of time that the rest of the herd will accept her into their ranks. Zebra are fascinating. Astralina's just mentioned that she's never seen a thin zebra. And that's absolutely true. You never see a thin zebra, or you barely ever see a thin zebra, even when they are seriously struggling for access to food. And that is because of all of the animals, elephants included, zebra are the most flatulent. They do most of their digesting of the plant material in their intestines. They are hindgut fermenters. And it is essentially that. They ferment the grass in their intestines. The bacteria playing a role in helping them, because as with all mammals, they cannot break down the cell walls of a plant cell without additional help. The bacteria needs to act to do that in order to break it down into material that the herbivores can utilize. Ruminants overcome this with 4 stomachs. Zebras only have 1 stomach, and so the grass sits within their intestines and ferments. And that creates an enormous buildup of gases. Obviously, the bacteria releasing a considerable amount as a byproduct of that breakdown. And so their stomachs are constantly swollen. Renius, the wonderful Renius that we always talk about that came through to give us a tracking lesson, also discussed this with us. And his theory is that it's a really good way of deterring the attentions of predators, because a predator always goes for the thinnest, weakest looking animal to make the chase and the hunt easier. Now, his theory is that it's one of the reasons that zebra have evolved the way that they have, is to look fat and healthy all the time. The only way to tell that a zebra is unhealthy is actually to look at their manes. Before they show any signs of weight loss, their manes will start to flop over to one side. And that is a sign of an unhealthy zebra, long before they lose that weight. It's an interesting thing. They do not show signs of weakness when compared to other animals. The buffalo, we've seen the buffalo recently really struggling. Luckily, with the amount of rain that we have, there's plenty of fresh green grass now for them to bulk up for the dry season. And there's different advantages to different approaches. So a ruminant digests their food far better, which means that they need to eat about half of what an animal of the equivalent weight would have to eat, being a hind gut fermenter. So, for example, the zebra versus the wildebeest, roughly the same size, roughly, and yet a wildebeest will eat about half of what a zebra will eat. But the zebra is capable of utilizing and consuming much more in a system where, for example, if there's a drought, they can utilize the grass that is of not as good quality as the wildebeest has to try and find. So there's different approaches to different things, and that's why you very often see wildebeest and zebra associating together. They will be able to utilize different parts of the plants. Zebra will trim the taller pieces of the grass, and the wildebeest will focus more intently. Once the zebra have moved through and grazed off the tops, they will focus more intently on the growing shoots closer to the ground. I'm just looking every now and again. There's a fork-tailed drongo ducking and diving between the zebras. See if you can spot him when he does fly out. And he is essentially making full use of the insects that the zebra are disturbing as they move about and graze. Come on, drongo. I was hoping he was going to demonstrate that perfectly, but he's decided to settle. What are you doing, little zebra? That's not very edible. Maybe an itchy nose there. Megan was wondering, do zebra go lame often as we watch them trot across the road? Megan, I've seen lots of limping zebra before, and almost inevitably that is caused by an injury from another zebra. As I said, when they're establishing their order, and the order that they walk in, they will kick, and they kick very hard each other. And often zebras with missing tails have also been injured by the bite of another zebra. So yes, you do often get lame zebra. Unfortunately, an animal with a serious injury, like an injury to the leg, is instantly far more at risk of attack by predators than any other. And usually lame animals are taken by predators almost immediately. And at the same time, you also find that they have tremendous healing abilities. They heal far faster than we do. So they definitely can recover much faster than we do and move about. I've seen a zebra walking on 3 legs with a very clearly broken leg. But yes, they do go lame fairly frequently. They are more than capable of dealing with it, however. All right, I'm going to leave our zebra herd, head across to Arathusa. In the meantime, let's find out how James's morning is going.
So from one water point to the next, this is, of course, Treehouse waterhole, so named for a treehouse that was used here once for what was going to be used for an reality TV show that I don't think materialized. Anyway, this is Treehouse Dam, and I'm sure there's some catfish here. There's certainly plenty of terrapins around. You can see their heads popping about. And then on the tree over there, some hornbills. One hornbill just basking in the rapidly heating morning. And all is peace. It's that time of the day after the expectation of the dawn when everything kind of calms down. Everything starts to settle in for the heat of the day. You can hear the call there of a slightly alarmed chin-spot batters. Over there, Brian, top left of this black monkey thorn in front of us is a little black and white bird.
Oh, there it goes.
There it goes. That is the chin-spot batters, everyone. Unfortunately, not a large fellow, difficult to see. You got him there? Well, he's in there, everyone. And he's got a frog in his throat. You can hear him. He's going, what, what, what? He's making a very odd call. And all around the ringneck duds going, bloop, 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 bloop. Just stunning. On we go. Hello, Eric. A very valid question, but actually pretty easy to answer. You want to know how we know when a francolin is alarm calling, given that they are loud all the time. Eric, a francolin's alarm call is just a different sound from its normal call. So, for example, I will make a demonstration of the Swainson's francolin call. It's quite a loud chicken-like noise. That's basically what a Swainson's francolin sounds like. And when a francolin alarm calls, it goes. In a very sort of rhythmical fashion. And so it's a totally different sound from the rather loud and aggressive territorial call that they all make. Thank you, Eric, for that. Like I say, it is starting to get quite steamy out here. I haven't seen anything much since I last saw you, and I think that's got a lot to do with the fact that the bush has got so much thicker since my departure, and Bryan's departure as well, of course. We were both saying how amazingly... Sorry, I just saw a flower whose name I remembered. Very beautiful pink flower. There is it. There it is. I think you'll be able to get it, Bryan. Can you see it?
Probably more.
This one here. This is called a wild sesame. I haven't seen one for many years. You got it there, Bryan?
Yep.
And each little piece of vegetation, like I so often say, is an ecosystem on its own. There are ants crawling all over this flower. There'll be various kinds of bees and other insects that'll come and pollinate it. And I don't know if you can see how well you can see from there, but you can see the little landing strip there. You can see that very kind of obvious purplish landing strip stripes there that go down the bottom petal, and that of course will reflect ultraviolet light, which in turn will attract the insects that will come and pollinate this wild sesame. I'm not going to pick this one like I did those white ones because obviously there aren't quite so many of them. And then over here, a familiar plant to many, many people, especially those who live in Hawaii, a hibiscus plant. And they obviously occur all over the world. And this one, I'm not sure which hibiscus it is, but it's obviously a hibiscus. And all around, the sound of very happy little insects, buzzing bees and flies, going to eat the pollen and drink the nectar of those flowers as they missed out on that during the normal course of the summer. In we get, close the door, plug it in, carry on. Come on, Wendy. There we go. Apparently someone is coming to look at Wendy soon to see why she doesn't want to start. This despite the fact that she did spend so long in hospital. Hello, Astralina. A question that I'm not sure I can answer. You want to know what a brunt nettle is called in English? Is that right, Kirstie? I don't know. Oh, brunt nettle as in fire nettle. Oh, brunt is means fire, so burn. So burning nettle, B-R-A-N-D, nettle. So brunt would be spelled B-R-A-N-D, and that means to burn or to brand, and so it would be a burning nettle. Now, I'm assuming that there must be some kind of, that probably just refers to a fairly standard issue nettle, and we get a few different kinds of nettles out here that will create a burning sensation, and one of which creates this sort of response in the skin where the skin starts to produce water. It's the most amazing sensation. It's very itchy to start, or very painful to start with, and then it just becomes itchy, and then there's this constant kind of flow of moisture off the skin. I guess that would probably be called a brunt nettle or burning nettle. Lots, or quite a few, look at that. This is why we just love these pans that exist off the roads. Buffalo, which would normally be in the Juma Dam or soiling the water there, are now living just around where they graze. Settling in there. Isn't that nice? Settling in there into the mud for a wonderful time as the heat of the day builds. And they must be so happy, given that there's so much water around. I mean, they were starting to really have a bit of a tough time of it. Full of the joys of the moist-laden autumn. So lots of buffalo around. I haven't seen one impala today, I don't think. They're probably all on quarantine now. They would have come out as it's got a little bit hotter. While we are watching these buffalo, the initial creators of a wallow like that would have been some warthog, and Jamie has found some.
Interestingly enough, these warthog are very, very pale in colour from wallowing, just as James was discussing. Now, Judy, you asked about the sex of the warthog that was killed by Tingana, and I said I suspected it was one of the females that we regularly see in that particular area. I was mistaken. It's not, because we've got both adult females here. Here they are. Part of the sounder that hangs out regularly in the mud wallows around Impala Road. And there are two youngsters as well. All fine and accounted for on this side, so it must have been a different warthog in that particular area.
Oh, that female with the four, I think Ghana is the one.
Oh, yes. Wium's also pointing out that there's another sounder that we see regularly. Started out with 6 piglets, now down to 4, and we saw one of them being consumed by Tingana a couple of weeks ago. It's interesting how he really does favor certain types of prey. I think I've seen Tingana eat more warthog than I have anything else. Now, that seems to be his speciality, particularly climbing into termite mounds and pulling out the warthog from deep inside their burrows. These youngsters finally getting to the stage where their mortality drops tremendously. I'm just trying to see if they've started growing their tusks yet, or if they've still got those little fluffy cheek patches that are meant to imitate tusks. Maybe just starting to peek through. So still under 6 months old. 6 months is when the tusks first start appearing in warthog. And they've still got those almost sideburn-like patches of fur on their cheeks that are meant to imitate tusks and make them look much bigger and scarier than they actually are. You can see the moisture on the end of this one's nose from where it's been digging at the plants. And Kimber, you were asking just that. You were wondering if they're natural rooters and diggers. The answer is yes. They generally prefer to try to get to the growing shoots of the plants rather than the stems themselves. And they will use their snouts to dig down into the dirt, dislodge tubers and the root systems of the grass. So that is their general feeding tactic. Unlike the portrayal of warthogs in certain Disney films that seems to very much suggest that they are insect feeders, which of course is completely false. A warthog might, on the odd occasion, eat an insect, and like most members of the porcine family, so the pig family, they are not fussy eaters. So whilst their predominant diet is clearly demonstrated here, as they snuffle along looking for shoots of plant material and roots sitting on their ankles, or their wrists actually, on their front legs, the equivalent of their wrists. They will also feed off carcasses, and I've seen them do it before. If they do manage to find leftovers of a kill, they will go and snack on it as a sort of a supplement to their diet. And the other animal that is predominantly herbivore that will regularly do that is a duiker. Duikers tend to feed off carcasses far more regularly than other antelope species. Now, Susie was wondering, as we're talking about the different members of the pig family, Susie was wondering if they are related to wild hogs that are seen in the US. And yes, they definitely share a common ancestor. They are, however, completely separate members of the family. The closer relative to the wild hogs within this particular area is actually an animal known as a bush pig. It's a completely nocturnal pig that I have not seen. Have you ever seen one here, Wium? I haven't seen one here either. They must occur here, they would occur here, but I've hardly ever seen them. But they would be a slightly closer relative. They've got a much larger body size and a very similar shape to a wild hog and very shaggy fur. Unfortunately, I don't have my book with a picture of a bush pig for you, but that is a closer relative than the warthogs are that we're looking at the moment. Still all members of the same suriform family. Look at all the mud caked around her snout and her tusks. And a nice clear view of the bottom tusks, the tushes. And of course, those are the ones that you really want to watch out for on a warthog. That's why it always fascinates me that Tingana seems to show such a preference for warthogs. Warthogs are not vulnerable, although they are when they're little, but an adult warthog is a serious challenge, even for a leopard as large as Tingana. Those tusks at the bottom, hello girl, those tusks at the bottom are rubbed razor sharp by the constant motion of the mouth and the rubbing against the top of the top tusks. And I always find it particularly impressive that Tingana is willing to risk putting his head down a warthog burrow, because of course warthogs back in to the burrows that they enter so that their sharp tusks are facing forwards, and they are capable of exploding out of those burrows at a tremendous speed. I've had one or two serious warthog-themed surprises in my walking life in the bush. There's nothing like a warthog coming out of a burrow at about 2,000 miles an hour. That might be a slight exaggeration, but that's definitely what it feels like when they explode out of their burrows. They come barreling out of there at high speed in a cloud of dust and noise. They're startled a little bit there. Isn't it wonderful how our warthog sightings have changed over the last few months? When I first started working here, the most that you saw of a warthog was its tail disappearing as it dashed off into the bush. And I think it's a combination of different factors, but I think one of the things that has relaxed the warthogs as much as they have is the drought. They've been forced around vehicles and around people due to the lack of water and maybe a lack of food in certain areas. And as a result, they've actually calmed down completely to the presence of us sitting next to them. We would never, ever, a couple of months ago, have enjoyed such a long warthog sighting. It got to the point where we were almost, not quite, but almost just crash cutting whenever you saw a warthog, because you could guarantee that they were going to disappear. It's a pleasure to see them so relaxed, and with so many youngsters about, we should be able to enjoy plenty more warthog sightings in the future. Okay, let's move on, see what else we can find, and leave our warthogs to their breakfast.
Good for you. Got to put some on my balding head as well, of course. Now that impala, which does not need sunscreen, is just quietly eating his cud, chewing his cud in the shade as the sun starts to build. All right, let's leave this rather poor imitator of the crested francolin alone and press on. I normally get cream all through my ears. Bryan, is it all rubbed in?
It's looking good.
Thank you. Bryan does a very, very good impression of the, well, he does the hardy-dar particularly well. He also does the ground hornbill, to the extent that the ground hornbill will talk back to him. Now, that is the ultimate test of how good you are at imitating a bird. If you can make the bird talk back to you, then you've arrived. Bryan has managed to do that. There's a little raptor that's flown into this torchwood tree. It just went up there. But I don't think we're going to see it up there in that thick foliage. No. I'm afraid not. There. It wasn't a raptor at all. Ugh, it's flown off into some more thick bush. Sorry, it went up there, Bryan, but I don't think we're going to see it. Dissuade the birds from alarm calling at him. Like I say, I mean, you can see how thick the bush is around here. I mean, it would be next to, I mean, ridiculously easy for a leopard to hide in bush like this. Sorry, I will try and find you one of these tracks. I'm seeing them very lightly, and I don't think the camera will pick them up. Well, they don't seem to be here anymore. There they are. Here, let me show you. D-Chef, while I show you these tracks, you want to know, you say wild cats don't seem to have as large a gene pool as domestic cats. Dean Chef, I'd say that's probably entirely untrue. I'll tell you why now. Let's just look at these tracks. Here you can see where he's walked along the road. There's a track. You see that, Brian? Mm-hmm. And this looks like a young male to me. It doesn't look like something as big as Tingana. And some mongoose tracks with him. And he's on top of the mongoose track. So he might be just down the road here. So let's carry on. We're not far from the Arethusa boundary. This is quite interesting, really. Let's keep going. He's on top of the white-tailed mongoose track, so it's probably from early this morning. So domestic cats, of course, are all derived from one species, and that species is the African wildcat. They were domesticated by the Egyptians many years ago. And from that very small population derive all domestic cats. Now, if you then combine the fact that domestic cats, especially if they are a specific breed, like a Siamese or a Burmese or a Persian or one of those ridiculous hairless things, you'll find that their genetic makeup is extremely narrow. They don't have a huge, there's very little width in the genetic pool. Or depth in the genetic pool, and that's because they get bred closer and closer for different sort of traits and different specific kinds of cats. Whereas in the wild, yes, while there may be some inbreeding in a particular area, that will flatten out because it will change over time. Let's just stop here and have a little look around this clearing. Could be the spotted face of a leopard watching us from the bushes anywhere around here. I don't hear any alarm calling terrified birds, nor do I hear any impala. So let's go to the next junction, and then we'll see if the tracks are there. Anyway, just this clearing again was bare, completely bare of grass the last time I was here. All right, Jamie is on Arethusa. Let's go and get an update from her and find out what's over there. I'll keep you updated with these tracks just now.
A couple of updates from Arethusa, and from that sort of the western side of our boundary. They've tracked and found Tingana on Simbambili. The exciting news is that the Nkorho seem to be on their way back towards us. They're currently lying down, sleeping, just about 200 meters away from our western boundary. They could well come back to us sometime this afternoon or this evening. Particularly with all of the vocalizations from the Birmingham boys, they know exactly where they are. They might decide to start moving through in that direction. There was also a brief sighting of shadow crossing into Hoffman, so south of our boundary. And that's pretty much all of the updates that have come from Arethusa at the moment. I've decided to just check around Ingwe Alley, Pangolin Track, that side of the reserve, just to see if there's any sign of Karula returning to hunt. She seems to be moving north into Djuma to hunt and then returning back south to her den site and back to the cubs. Now, I must say the April Fool's Day winner this morning was Mike Grover, who works in this area and is our next door neighbor. Now, Mike sent through a lovely picture of a leopard cub underneath a deck, saying that it was Karula had moved, or he didn't even specify Karula, he just said this was taken by one of the guests this morning. He certainly had me fooled for a couple of minutes. I got very, and it was so plausible because Karula has taken her cubs and denned underneath the decks of the lodges before. It was the perfect April Fool's joke for all of us. For a second there, I really did believe that Karula had decided to move her cubs back towards us. Okay, we can go around that side. Wium spotted some kudus on a termite mound. Let's see if we can't get a nice view from the road here. I've never been so deeply, bitterly devastated by an April Fool's joke. I was so excited. Hello, girls. Coming to our usual subtle stop. I absolutely love looking at kudu. Those long, elegant legs. Look how faded her stripes are. That's interesting. Her stripes, or the stripes in this particular female, are barely visible. Interesting. Each and every kudu has an individual stripe pattern. We could keep track of them all.
That's 5 stripes.
She's got 5 stripes and not much else. Amazing how different she looks from the others. A female moving down towards the drainage line. And as she moves, her ears rotating constantly and independently to check and make sure that there's nothing either sneaking up behind her or in front of her. Now approaching a thick area with her ears spread wide. They're basically like satellite dishes on her head. There's a young male as well. It's amazing, the more you look, the more kudu you see in a kudu sighting. There's probably about 6 of them here, 6 or 7. And in a moment I'm going to reposition, see if we can't see any of the little kudu that have been wandering around recently. Let's see if we can't get a bit closer. Hello, ladies. Here we go. There's the 2 little ones I was looking for. Peeking out from behind the young male. Now, Megan has said that kudu kind of remind her, oh, cute, little touching of noses there between the 2 kudu calves. Sorry, Megan. Megan has said that in a weird way, and from a distant way, kudu remind her of camels. And I can totally see where you're coming from. I think it's very much the shape of the, whoopsie, got a little bit of a fright. It's the shape of the body, and particularly clear in males. This young male's still a little bit young, and a bit too much of a teenager to show it clearly. But the males develop those very powerful shoulders with a lump on the top. And unlike camels, that's not really a water storage system. It's more a place for muscle attachment, because as his horns grow larger and larger, at the moment they are positively minuscule for a kudu. They're still very young. But as those horns grow and spiral, they become very, very heavy. And the kudu needs a thick, muscular neck to serve as muscle attachments. And those horns will continue to grow throughout his life until they obtain the enormous size of a mature kudu bull. Hey boy, you've still got a while to go. You've got impala-sized horns. No offense meant, of course. I can see what you mean, Megan, about, in a weird, distant way, them reminding you of camels. Our camels are one of the only mammal species that walk with both left legs moving forward first and then both right legs moving forward. The only other animal that does that in this particular area is the giraffe. And in fact, the Latin name of the giraffe, the camelopardus, is essentially the camel horse. Oh, sorry, no, the camel leopard. I'm distracted by the oxpeckers fluttering about. The camel leopard with the spotted coats. Those large ears and large eyes with formidable eyesight that is attracted to movement immediately tells you that this is an animal that likes to be secretive and on high alert in thickly vegetated areas. You always see that even with us in the vehicles, kudu are more relaxed when they have cover. You hardly ever enjoy a kudu sighting out in an open clearing. They move as quickly as possible through a clearing in order to get to the cover of more trees and bushes. Try just see if we can get a last view of those kudu calves that are at the bottom of this drainage line. Here we go. It's amazing how comfortable kudu are separated from their mums, even at a very, very small age. As soon as they're about a month old, they start to move quite far away from their mothers. And it's very similar for a lot of the antelope species. The impala do the same thing, and they tend to stick, the youngsters tend to stick together rather than with their moms, until, of course, it's feeding time. Hornbills are making a racket. Where are they? Straight into the sun. I have an interesting observation, and I would love to know how this happened. In the middle of the road is one of the few large rocks on Djuma. Now, this rock has migrated from where it was all the way at the top of the drainage line to that position, and I would absolutely love to know how it managed to do that, how it managed to walk about 20 or so odd meters, so about 60 feet away from its original position. Now, I know where it is because it's actually one of the few, as I said, one of the few large rocks within this particular area.
It didn't fall out the sky.
I don't think it fell out of the sky, but I don't know. Don't know for certain. Generally, they're a little bit more pockmarked with some scorch marks. I honestly think it might have been kicked by an elephant. Or by a vehicle, I suppose. Maybe a stubbed toe from an elephant. Or even just an elephant moving things around because he felt like it. They do occasionally do that. Okay, we're going to see what other wonders we can find for the last few minutes of our sunrise safari. Let's find out what James's plans are.
There is a fork-tailed drongo, a slightly better example of the one that was calling earlier, imitating, as it was, a crested francolin. This one, if you listen carefully, is going... Yep. Maybe sort of making his own call, I'm not sure. I mean, there are two of them answering each other, but all around there's huge amounts of birdsong. But the noticeable absence, as Bryan just pointed out to me, is the lack of the woodland kingfisher. And while Wium said he saw one or two about 3 or 4 days ago, Bryan and I haven't seen one today, so I think you'll find that 90% of them, if not all of them, have headed north towards the southern reaches of the Sahel, where they will spend the rest of the year. Canaries calling, you can just hear swizzling sweet calls in the background. And it's amazing, you know, I was trying to do a little bit of recording of an audio book during the course of this leave, and to do that you need to find complete silence, and it is astonishing when you try and actually find it, how difficult it is to find any area that is free of, I mean, forget the sounds of the city, they're obviously always quite noisy. There's so often a bird, even in a city, flying over, calling, and it's a wonderful sort of reminder that the wilderness is all around us if we are prepared to look for it. I'm just going to carry on along here, nothing in the way. I don't know where those tracks seem to come into this block here, but nothing further yet. Ah, now Siberia Zumi, you watching the camera at Pete's Pond, which is in Mashatu in Botswana, just the southern reaches of Botswana, and you say that there is still woodland kingfisher there at Pete's Pond. That's interesting. So maybe they've just left, and they're about to leave from there too. Maybe the ones from here will collect the ones from there as they go past. I think we're going to keep circling this block for the short remainder of the rest of the drive, just in case that leopard doesn't pop out somewhere through here. Like I say, the bush is so thick at the moment that unless it is pretty much on the road, or unless you go in on foot, it's going to be impossible to find him. But you might be lucky. And I'm sure Jamie gave you the updates on the lions. The Birmingham boys are on Torchwood. And unfortunately, not with us anymore. It seems to be that I've chased all the cats away. There seemed to have been huge cat action while I wasn't here. But with any luck, that will return. It could possibly also be Kirsten's fault. It's probably her fault. Not ours, Bryan.
No, definitely.
It's definitely Kirsten's fault. Yeah. Oh, well.
What can you do?
What can you do? You know, I mean, it's difficult to get good help these days. So. Oh, quickly, let's go across to Jamie. She's got something very small to show you.
Don't disappear, don't disappear. It's the tiniest leopard tortoise I've ever seen. Hold on one moment. Let's try and get a good position. Oh, there he is. Oh, he's gonna disappear. Obviously, I don't want to go and grab him. That leopard tortoise was the size of my palm. That was exactly how big it was. I mean, that thing must have been less than a year old. It was so tiny. Unfortunately, it's already managed to escape into the thick vegetation. I'll see if I can't get another view of it. They move fast when they want to. I mean, fast for a tortoise. Or fast for our perception of a tortoise. Where did you go, little thing? No. Unfortunately, it has gone racing off somewhere in that thick vegetation. Oh well, it was worth a shot. Definitely this one of the smallest leopard tortoises I've ever seen. Now, since my little walking rock has vanished off into the vegetation, apparently there's lots of discussion happening about the mysterious moving rock that I pointed out earlier. I would love to know how it migrated like that. I thought about maybe rain. Maybe the rain washed away some of the soil underneath it and it rolled down the hill, but I don't quite know how it managed to roll down the hill and then up the other side. It must have been an elephant. It's the only thing I can think of, unless somebody got a flat tire and decided to chock their wheels with it whilst changing the tire, but I don't think so. Oh. One lone impala ram dashing off. I'm not sure. What do you think, Wium? Apart from the outer space theory, I think elephant. You think okay, Wium's sticking with his outer space theory. You never know. Stranger things have happened. That's true, actually. X-Rang is on exactly the same page as Wium. The way that our leopards manage to suddenly disappear off a road or cross a road without seeming to touch it or leave any footprints, that rock has managed to do something very, very similar. There's some more impala. Stop, I want to see what's got this one as alert as it is. Probably other impala, to be completely honest. But he is looking in the direction where James had those leopard tracks from earlier. Oh, he's relaxed again. Definitely seeing more and more of these bachelor herds. The next few months within the impala dynamics are going to be interesting to observe as they start to fight each other, with hormones skyrocketing for breeding season, for rutting season. They have been making a great deal of noise around the Drongo Dam at night. I'm sure most of you have heard them. That deep grunting sound. I remember when I first heard that as a child, I was walking somewhere in the bush. I can't remember exactly what I was doing, but I remember being absolutely terrified that it was a leopard or a lion growling at me. I must have been very young. But it is a very disconcerting sound for an antelope to make. I imagine that for James returning after the last 2 weeks, it must feel like driving through a completely different area. I've just been looking at, as we drive along, I've just been looking at the amount of growth from the trees growing over and across and into the road. And the change, it really is like driving in a completely different place since 2 weeks ago. And I'm really so happy that that rain did occur and that it arrived just in time, just at the end of the plant's growth season. And speaking of James, I'm sure he would love to chat a little bit more about how different this place looks since he was last here.
A beastly little cuckoo has just flown through there and hidden from us. Bryan, you did see it, did you?
I did.
It looked like an African cuckoo, most of which, of course, all the cuckoos are also going to go north very soon. I've seen a Jacobin and that African cuckoo. Unfortunately, it has flown off. I will show you a picture of it, though. Just simply because I'm feeling full of joy and kindness. Let me find it on my telephone. Back. Cuckoo. The African cuckoo. There he is. Can you see that at all? Yeah. There we go. There he is. That's quite a nice picture of him. And what we'll do is we'll just scroll along. Now, that's what his photograph looks like, but I want one of him in flight, because they really are quite difficult. There, they've just got a very kind of amorphous grey colour on the back. And there are the eggies. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Okay, so we were watching the fork-tailed drongo earlier, and the fork-tailed drongo, of course, is the host bird for the African cuckoo. That is the drongo's eggs. See that? And that's the cuckoo's egg. and you can see how beautifully disguised it is. That's incredible. So they're about 1 inch long. That's brilliant. That really is so cool. So that is the African cuckoo, and its host egg, the fork-tailed drongo. Behind me, Jamie is driving along with Wium. We'll carry on. We don't want to see them, of course. Here, something that has not come back to life with the water, a dead scotia or weeping boerbean tree. Very beautiful tree, that, sitting on its termite mound. Now, Wium assures me that a serval has been seen around this vicinity quite regularly in the last little while. I suppose probably mostly at night. But I have yet to see him. Which was a bit sad for me last night. Wium assured me we'd see him. We did not. He was then not given dinner because of that. Well, let's just look at this quickly. So very few of these combretums have bothered to fruit this year, I've just noticed. And that's because there's been no water. But this russet bush willow has just produced its, well, the first in a flush of fruits. And the combretums, of course, are known by this four-winged fruit. Lots and lots of different combretum species, all of which have this four-winged fruit, unsurprisingly distributed by the wind. That's why it's got these wings on it. Apparently you can make a tea out of this. I have made a tea out of it. It tastes like, it doesn't taste like anything really. It just tastes like sort of you've soaked a few old leaves in some water, which I suppose is what tea is really. I don't think it's going to replace Earl Grey or English breakfast tea as the tea of choice with the Queen, assuming the Queen drinks tea. She probably starts the day with a gin. So we're going up towards quarantine clearings now. I'm hoping to see a little bit of general game there before we end our drive off, our very pleasant morning drive. And on the road, a francolin. Which francolin is that? This is quite interesting. $225 at the moment. That, do you know what that is? It's a Shelley's francolin, everyone. That's wonderful. Shelley's francolin, and to the left of the Shelley's francolin, in the shade there, there's a slender mongoose, Bryan. It's just popped its head back in. It saw us. That francolin we don't often see. We hear it in this area all the time, going chip choo chip choo chip choo chip choo chip. We don't often see them. That's the Shelley's francolin. Wonderful. Now, my hat auction apparently sitting at $225. That's James Bear. I don't know if you've made that bid or if you're just giving us the update. $225 to the local school. Okay, and that's going to last, well, I mean, we'll keep auctioning until I actually manage to replace this hat. So that is the leading bid so far. That's pretty good going, don't you think, Bryan? It's about 7 million rand. Current exchange rate. Thank you, James Bear. All right, let's head across to Jamie for the last little bit of the drive. We're going to head home. We'll see you this afternoon at 1600. No, at 3:30. Don't forget, we're half an hour earlier again today. That isn't an April Fool. It is, in fact, true. Thank you, Bryan. Wonderful to work with you again, yes. Nice to work with Kirstie in the final control, Rebecca as well, and we'll hand you back to Jamie and Wium for the last little bit of the drive. Thank you to all of you for your questions. See you later.
as James heads home, and before I do, I just wanted to pay a quick visit to the Galago Pan, see if any of the animals have started returning there to drink. If there's not much in terms of groundwater left, most of the puddles have started to dry up except for the larger pans. So there's a chance we might encounter some buffalo, or even, fingers crossed, you never know, find Karula coming across to have a drink. Oh. As it is, there is nothing. All right, well, we'll do a quick loop around through the drainage line systems. Now, a lovely peaceful morning filled with elephants. They are all the way spread throughout Djuma. Oh my goodness. Half the guinea fowl population of Djuma's here. I heard them alarm calling earlier, but I'm pretty sure it was at an eagle rather than a leopard or anything like that. We should be seeing some baby guinea fowl at some stage soon. That's something else for us to look forward to. For this afternoon, hopefully the Nkorhomas decide to come back across from Simbambili and join us on Djuma. And who knows, it's time, I feel like it's time for a wild dog sighting as well. I feel like they need to decide to come back and join us once again. Alrighty, well, we've come to the end. A big thank you to you all for joining us. Thank you, Wium, for your fantastic camera work as always. And thank you to Kirstie, and a welcome back to Kirstie, returning to final control. She's back from leave, so welcome back, Kirstie. And a warm welcome to Rebecca as well, who has joined the team. Don't forget about our time changes for this afternoon, half an hour earlier, which is 9:30 Eastern Time and 6:30 in Pacific Time. Thank you as always for your questions and your comments and all of the feedback that you send through to us. We really appreciate it. We always love having you on the back of the vehicle. Have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are in the world, and we will catch you this afternoon.